Hello and welcome to tonight's event, Oi Canada. My name is Deborah and I'm the live performance programmer at JW3. I'm originally from the traditional unceded territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh and Squamish First Nations, also known as Vancouver, BC. But I've lived in London for 5 years and I'm really excited about sharing a little bit of Canada with you all tonight. For those of you who don't know, JW3 is the UK's biggest Jewish cultural centre. Over the last year, our physical building transformed into a food bank, while many of our cultural events moved online. This has made international collaborations even more possible than before, and so tonight I'm really excited about building virtual bridges between the UK and Canada. Oi Canada was always an opportunity to showcase some of our favourite talented Canadian Jewish artists and to encourage cultural exchange between Canada and the UK. It was originally organised and scheduled for July 1st, so you may hear a couple of mentions of Canada Day. However, we've decided to postpone this event due to the recent discoveries of unmarked and mass graves at Canadian residential schools. We stand in solidarity with Indigenous communities, and I encourage everybody to read the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action and to donate to residential school survivors if you're able. Amongst the many talented performers that you'll see tonight is a Jewish Indigenous photographer called Kaylee Spitzer, so please stick around to check that out. We will also be premiering 2 brand new commissions between British Jewish and Canadian Jewish artists, and I just wanted to extend a huge thank you to the High Commission of Canada, the Quebec Government in London, and the Segal Centre in Montreal for your support of this new work and of Canadian and Quebecois artists. Finally, I'm thrilled to say that after months of lockdown, our building is now reopened, so please take a look at our website to see what's coming up. But we're going to continue to program digital content, so no matter where you are in the world, I hope we see you again. Now, to introduce you to our host. Kerry Shale is a Canadian actor. His first job in the UK was in the West End musical Bar Mitzvah Boy, and he's had many other stage appearances since then, including the title role in Mel Brooks and Carl Reiner's The 2,000-Year-Old Man at JW3. He's also a film and TV actor who has appeared in Yentl and played Steve Coogan's agent in The Trip. On the radio, Kerry has voiced everyone from Woody Allen to Leonard Cohen, and he can be seen in Neil Gaiman's The Sandman on Netflix later this year. And there's no better person to guide us through tonight's event. So please sit back, make yourself a Caesar, and enjoy Oi Canada.
Thank you, Deborah. And hi, everybody. I'm here in a little corner of the big hall at JW3. Tonight, I'll be introducing you to some wonderfully talented Canadian Jewish people, who will often be joined by British Jewish people for a series of entertaining and informative international collaborations. There will also be a few celebrity, not quite actually Jewish people dropping by, like expat Canadian comedian Tony Law and national treasure Richard Curtis. I can also promise a delightfully large amount of Leonard Cohen content. First, what is the most Canadian public event? The answer is, of course, an ice hockey game. In Canada, we just call it hockey, eh? In fact, the winner of the sacred Stanley Cup is being decided this very week. And what song is sung before each and every hockey game? To provide the answer, from Hamilton, Ontario, now working out of Halifax, Nova Scotia, this is Ben Kaplan on vocals with Graham Scott on electric piano.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for
Oh, Canada. which took its time becoming our official national anthem. Although we all grew up singing it, it wasn't made official until the 1st of July 1980, 41 years ago today. Our next segment features Ellie Battalion and Jamie Ellman. Ellie and Jamie are co-creators and performers of the award-winning Canadian web comedy series Yidlife Crisis, which has had over 3 million online views and 4 Canadian Screen Award nominations. A warning for sensitive viewers: this segment contains scenes of repeated and violent chewing of bagels.
Hello, 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 London. A freilich in Canada tug. It's us, Yidlife Crisis, self-proclaimed poster boys for Jewish Canada, aka the Frozen Chosen. How you doing, loves? I'm gonna drop the accent. I can't.
Thank you. It is a covet for us.
No, that's not a good choice of words.
Sorry, it is an honor for us with a U to be celebrating Canada Day with the only Jewish cultural organization in all of Europe to honor us Canadians with a skating rink. Thank you very much. You know, July 1st is a very big day for us, and I don't know if it's as big as your British Independence Day, but it's definitely bigger than Guy Fawkes Day. So as we like to say in English, Guy Fawkin' and yum.
We're the co-creators of the world's first 18 and over, or as we like to say, Chai Plus Yiddish web series. It's great to be with you all. We don't like to sound so cocky. We've just barely met, but our show has been called one of the top 50 Yiddish web series on the internet.
We swung by your neck of Frognal recently when we were performing at Limud UK in Birmingham. Definitely the biggest act to be there since Yid Zeppelin opened for Schwartz and Shabbos. A big deal. While we were there, we had the chance to swing by Hampstead, and that's where we got the chance to see the JW3, or as we dyslexically like to refer to it as, the Jew. And while we were around the area, we had a chance to stop in with Bubby Ellie, who lays out the best hard candies, I gotta say.
She sure does, and her kugel is to die for. Bubby Ellie really does bond all of us jocks together, Jews of the Commonwealth, of course, like even our faraway brothers and sisters in Australia. We have Bubby here on our, look at it, on our money. She's on our passports. She's on our Netflix.
As a bridge-building gesture for the Commonwealth, we decided to show you something on this special day of when we were actually in the East End of London. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the very first installment of our series, Britishkeit.
Britishkeit. I'm sorry.
Shalom Aleichem, we zijn Chaim Lezer van de webserie Yidlife Crisis. We're here in London, United Kingdom, a great global metropolis. And like all great global metropoli, there is a Jewish story to be told at the heart of it.
The thing is, we know absolutely nothing about that story. Good news. We brought an expert, David Rosenberg. He's going to lead us around where we are right now, which is East London. Give us a little tour of Brick Lane.
Brick Lane is in the East End of London. It's the most famous street in the East End of London, and Brick Lane runs from north to south. This is the edge of where the Jews lived. About 150,000 Jews settled here from about the 1880s to about the First World War. The East European Jews in very large numbers came at that time. There had been previous migrations, much smaller migrations. There were also German Jews and Dutch Jews.
But who started the bagels?
How started the bagel? Well, I mean, if you came here 100 years ago, you wouldn't buy your bagels in a shop. You'd buy them from street sellers. There'd be stalls, there'd be people sitting by the roadside with bags of bagels.
Our hometown of Montreal has rival bagel bakeries just a few blocks from each other.
Menesdu.
Yeah.
Same theater in Fairmont.
Yeah.
So like Jews, we like to argue about these things. Can we just go try them right now and find out what's happening? Okay, let's do it.
You're looking the wrong way.
I know, I keep looking the wrong way. It's inevitable.
I have to admit to being a little bit biased. I want to be able to rip this stuff apart, literally and metaphorically, but it looks really good.
When the Jews came here, they came speaking Yiddish. They didn't know a single word of English, and so they worked for other Jewish employers. Jews who had come maybe a few years earlier had made just about enough money to run their own workshops. And they were sort of working in the sweatshops. They were working 14 to 18 hours a day. Their pay was low. They started to form unions. And in 1889, there was an incredible strike. 7,500 immigrant Jewish tailors went on strike, and what they were striking for was the 12-hour day.
He's even wearing his shirt. Did you see? He came in representing.
Beauties, baby. But let's have a look at these bagels. Bagels? Bagels?
There was already a Yiddish newspaper in the East End called the Arbeiter Feind, the Workers' Friend. It reflected their daily experience, but also told them it doesn't have to be this way. Things can change. And who's going to change it? Well, you are.
This is gonna change the way I wear my pants. There's no not getting this.
Hang on, no, for real. What are we gonna get here? Peanut butter bagel? What should we get?
Peanut butter bagel?
I would get a peanut butter bagel.
That's interesting. They call them bagels there, but they're bagels.
She said 7,500 Jewish tailors. Now that's a schmutz of business.
Tailoring was probably the largest trade, and among the immigrant Jewish workers, women as well as men. Ultimately, women, probably 3 times as many women as men in that industry. A lot of the others were boot and shoe makers.
What do you call these here? Bagel. Okay, because sometimes it says bagel and sometimes it says bagel. You spell it 2 different ways.
French and American.
There was great pressures to speak English, and that didn't come just from the host society. It came from within the Jewish community itself.
Is that smoked meat? What is this?
Salt beef. Salt beef.
Salt beef?
Watch your mouth.
I think you call it pastrami. Do you call it pastrami?
Well, in Montreal we call it smoked meat, but that's not smoked meat.
There was a school in the East End called the Jews Free School, and the head teacher there tried to make them English people of the Jewish persuasion. He wanted them to lose all their distinctive cultural attributes in order to get on in the society. He used to tell the kids off for speaking Yiddish, and not just tell them off, he used to beat them. Yeah, he used to tell them they've got to stop speaking, they've got to stop thinking, they've got to stop dreaming in Yiddish. How can you stop dreaming in Yiddish? So you have Yiddish dreams?
Who doesn't?
That's why I don't sleep.
Not a fatty one though.
Hardly doesn't have no fat. Look.
Sorry?
This bookshop is Brick Lane Bookshop. Somebody needs to do Yiddish English Cockney. That would be interesting.
A guide to uncovering London's radical history. I guess David's a bit of a radical here.
I was teaching for 22 years in inner London, and we had kids who spoke about somewhere between 70 and 80 home languages within our school. And we made sure that we told them, keep your home language, learn English, but keep your home language, develop your home language, learn as many languages as possible. You know, language is a real asset, and also in terms of just being yourself and being proud of who you are.
Salt beef.
Salt beef.
Wasn't that your nickname back in camp?
Your change, please.
Yom Kippur 1889, lots and lots of Jews in the East End were in shul. There were also lots and lots of Jews who were in Christ Church Hall, and they were listening to a lecture by a Jewish anarchist called Benjamin Feigenbaum. And he says, if there is a God, how can he let me give a talk like this on Yom Kippur? I give him 2 minutes to reveal himself. And he counts down the 2 minutes. And when it gets to the end of the 2 minutes, he shouts out, there is no God. And a band in there with instruments starts playing revolutionary tunes. That tells you something about the conflict between the secular and the religious.
It's 9 o'clock in the morning. Why are you putting smoked meat on a bagel?
Go back to Montreal and tell them they have to have bread.
All right.
Montreal hasn't lived yet.
The East End was the cradle of these struggles in Britain. And it wasn't just a coincidence that they happened at the same time as the Jews coming here, because the Jews were very involved in those struggles. They were anarchists, socialists, communists, but the anarchists in particular had very significant numbers of women involved. Here's Emma Goldman, international anarchist celebrity of the time. She did 3 meetings inside this hall. This is the banner of the London Jewish Bakers Union, Union Bread.
Union Brood.
Union Bread.
The Ellie Battalion story. 1, 2, 3, nacht.
It definitely passed.
Yeah.
I'm not concerned about it passing.
It's fresh. The bagels are warm.
This right here is a peanut butter bagel, which is sticking to the roof of my mouth, but I don't mind it staying there.
I would say this is the best I can get in London, the best value for money as well.
Wow. Well, we'll see what the rival place next door has to say about it. They're cooking. The Beigels are cooking. The Yidden are coming.
An argument starts.
Why do you keep saying Beigel?
Because it's called a bagel.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that. And if you want to see more of our stuff, you can see it at yidlifecrisis.com, which also has a whole variety of assorted shtick that is definitely NSFW. And by that, I mean not safe for Westminster.
Enough about you, Shoin. It's our day. Let's talk about one of our favorite subjects, us. We've prepared a little something here for the Brits and anyone else watching around the world about Jewish Canada. We call this, apropos, the Yidlife Crisis Guide to Jewish Canada.
That's right. Now, there are many Jews in Canada. According to our calculation, approximately 400,000, which means, according to extra calculations that we did, approximately 2.4 million Jewish opinions in Canada. And according to even more calculations, approximately 7.2 million opinions on how many Jews there are in Canada. Now, part of the reason why it's so confusing is because we actually have a special nomadic tribe, a shevet, if you will, that goes darom, or south every year, down to the Kingdom of Florida, the Magic Kingdom. I think you know this shevet. They are known as Shevet Hasno Burdim, or as known in Yiddish, Bishnei Fegelach.
Jews are spread out from east to west across the great country of Canada, but what's interesting about it is our observance level becomes progressively lower the further west we go. So where we're from in Montreal, you find that people tend to be a little bit more orthodox leaning, and then as you move west to Ottawa, Toronto, and then toward the prairies, you'll find that Jews can be quite conservative. By the time you get to British Columbia, Jews there are entirely Lutheran. Now, it's interesting because things work the opposite way. If you head to the Maritimes and the eastern provinces, Jews there are entirely Hasidic in their observance. This, of course, is the Newfoundlander Rebbe.
The holy man. Now, like the JW3, there are a lot of Jewish cultural organizations in Canada. Here's the footprint of all the federations. As you can imagine, we have a lot of synagogues and places of worship. And oh, by the way, we have a couple Chabads. Yeah. Actually, one of our favorite Chabads is right in the tippy top up north. This is Chabad Alert in Alert, Canada, led by the very dynamic Rabbi Wolf, and of course, his devout congregation, B'nai Shnei.
Satmar. Yeah, you can tell because the socks. See. Jewish Canadians are polyglots. We speak many languages. Of course, we speak English. Anachnu medabrim Ivrit. Wir reden ein bisschen Yiddish, warte. And in our home province, of course, la belle province de Quebec, we speak Lashon Hara, because we're a distinct society and we hate everyone.
But Tachlis, at the end of the day, no matter where you are in Jewish Canada, we all have the same strong feeling about that small but disproportionately powerful strip of land. And by that we mean resentment of Toronto.
All right, landsmen, enjoy your Canada Day, and hey, Lashana Habaa, Halavai in the flesh.
Good Yontif, Canada.
Shkoyach.
And if that smeared cream cheese on your bagel, check out the 3 seasons of Yidlife Crisis on YouTube. Oh, and if you were taken by the mention of Elizabeth Windsor, you'll love our next guest, journalist Lisa Goldman. Lisa recently moved back to Canada after wandering all over the world, including time in America and Israel. That must have been rough, since neither of those countries has a royal family. Lisa will explain.
So the truth is that I never really thought there was anything odd about being so knowledgeable about the royal family until I moved abroad to Israel when I was 17 and met at university Jews from Britain who said, we never talk about the royal family, and why are you doing that? And I thought, years later, I've been thinking about that, and I actually don't really have an answer. I do remember that when I was 10 years old, my stepfather bought me one of those glossy souvenir books for the Queen's. It was 1977, and it was the Queen's Silver Jubilee, right? So he bought me this book, and my mother said for years that I just memorized it. And one of the things that I memorized, besides the entire royal family tree going back to William IV or something, was that Queen Victoria apparently started a tradition or a rule, I don't know if it's a rule or just a tradition, of all the male members of the royal family being circumcised. And I thought, well, there's the connection, obviously circumcision, Jews, So there was that. And then also when I was a teenager, we would go to Jewish summer camp or Jewish youth group gatherings with the Americans, because I lived in Vancouver on the West Coast, and we'd join, I belonged to the USY, United Synagogue Youth Group, as one did. And we would join the Americans, the American USY branches for these gatherings in the summer in Oregon or in Washington State. And, there was all that, they would sort of point out little discrepancies in our accents and claim that we said about instead of about. But, we were very intent on showing these crass, loud Americans that we were cultured and different. So we would pull out our passports, and see, I brought props. And we'd say, you see, it says here that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Canada requests, in the name of Her Majesty the Queen, that all those whom it may concern, blah, blah, blah. And, this made us feel special and classier and different. And Canadians always feel very sort of overwhelmed by the Americans because we're so much in their shadow. And I think we were sort of rushing to show them that we were different. So that was amusing. And the other thing I noticed was that, as we got older, I remember watching, the wedding of Prince Charles and Diana. And, that was like an all-day affair. My mother and I just sat there, and my little sister, we just watched the whole thing all day. And my mother would say, oh, poor thing, they didn't brush her hair up properly under the tiara. And I thought, I just don't think that my American Jewish friends are sitting and spending the whole day watching this wedding. I don't even think that any of the American networks broadcast it live in like saturation coverage. But there it was on the CBC. There was no other news except for the wedding. So as I said, I left Canada and went abroad, and I lived in the States for many years. I lived in Israel for many years. And when I was in academia, I asked a colleague, why he thought Canadians were so attached to the royal family. And he posited that, Canadian Jews, and he posited that it was something to do with the Balfour Declaration. And he said that also explained why Canadian Jews were such, hardcore Zionists. There was a sort of a sense of belonging to something bigger than oneself in terms of the empire and also stability, with the Queen and the royal family at the center of it all. Perhaps, I'm not sure if that's the case, but it's really definitely been a stable constant in my life, the royal family. I mean, until, don't tell anyone, but I'm actually a complete Republican now. But until recently, I think I could name every single member of the extended royal family. So to test all of this, when I moved back to Canada after being away for 33 years, a friend of mine told me that if you write an email to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, saying that you want an official poster of the Queen, they will send it to you. So I tested this odd theory. I sent a single line saying I'd like a poster of the Queen and one of Prince Philip. And a week later, without any comment, it came in a hard tube with a stamp on it that had the Queen, obviously, on the stamp and on our money. And this came at the expense of the Canadian government, an official poster of Her Majesty. And I have a second one with the late Prince Philip, but I don't want to make us sad, so I won't show you that. Voila. I still don't really have an explanation, but, I grew up with cookie tins with the Queen's face on them and, Peak-Freen biscuits and tea and God Save the Queen. And now nobody in my family has ever lived in England, and I have absolutely no idea how we got from the shtetl to, the Queen in one generation, but there you go.
Our next guest is a Toronto resident, a storyteller, writer, theater artist, and lecturer. He has prepared a segment that is both unexpected and enlightening. This is S. Bear Bergman.
Jews know. The importance of living water. You can't really do anything important without it. That's how we move from state to state, or more specifically, that's how we move to our best state. When we're moving toward ritual purity, we dunk in the living water. When we're moving toward choosing Judaism, we dunk in the living water. And when we're moving toward our final gender, or our final gender expression, we dunk in the living water. We don't know a lot about Jacques Laffrogue. The facts are basically a skeleton. We know he was born in France in 1718. We know that in 1733, when he was 15 years old, he left France on the way to Amsterdam. And when he got on that boat, everyone that he knew his whole life, since he was assigned female at birth, was left behind. There was a shipwreck. He ended up in a different part of France. When he got off that boat, he was a man. He lived for 5 years in France till he was about 23. As a man, he was a tailor's boy and a baker's assistant. He was in the army, all manner of things. And then, in 1738, he got on a boat for New France, aka Canada. A Jewish transgender man was the first Jew to ever arrive here. We know that because the intendant, the inspector of New France, wrote letters to the king about Jacques and told him, "We have this strange person here, and upon examination, we have determined that their sex is not as advertised and that their religion is unacceptable to us. Can we please send them back?" And the King of France said, "Nope. Work it out." The things that happened after that, in fact, all the things that happened to Jacques, all the ones we can prove, all the ones we know for sure, there's very few. And so, we embroider the story over the frame. We embellish the bones. We imagine, did he run away because he knew he'd have a better life somewhere that everyone had known him since birth? Was he sent away because they found him embarrassingly masculine? That seems familiar. It's more or less what happened to me. When he got off that boat and became a manservant and a tailor's boy and a baker's assistant and an army captain for years and years, he's Jacques in all the records. We never hear his birth name again until the very end, when they decide that in fact they won't keep him in New France and they send him away again. There are a lot of places that I can add my own experience to the story. It's so easy for me to know him as a person who got on a boat knowing that when he got back off, no one who'd ever known him would see him. That he could say he was anyone from anywhere, and he'd be safe. And sometimes, when you're trans, all you want in the world is to be able to arrive somewhere where you're safe, where no one knows who anybody thought you were before. And then when he gets to New France and they try to tell him who he has to be in order to stay, he says, "I won't be that. And also, I'm going to stay." Intransigent, stubborn, Jewish, transgender man, Jacques Laffrogue, Yeah, it's a real surprise. I'm interested in his story.
Those of you who regularly attend JW3 musical events will recognize our next guest. She's from the UK, but has a huge affinity for Canadian singer-songwriters like Joni Mitchell. I first met her at a JW3 evening dedicated to Leonard Cohen. In fact, here's a little Leonard Cohen poem. It's called Not a Jew. Anyone who says, I'm not a Jew, is not a Jew. I'm very sorry, but this decision is final. Please welcome one of the great Leonard Cohen interpreters, Catherine Williams.
Hi, I'm Catherine Williams, and this is Bird on a Wire. Like a bird on a wire, like a drunk in a midnight choir, I have tried in my way to be free. Like a worm on a hook, like a night from some old-fashioned book. I have saved all my ribbons for thee. If I have been unkind, I hope that you can just let it go by. If I have been untrue, I hope you know it was never you. Like a baby stillborn, like a beast with his horn, I have torn everyone who reached out for me. But I swear by this song and by all that I have done wrong, I will make it all up to thee. I saw a beggar leaning on his wooden crutch. He said to me, you must not ask for so much. And a pretty woman leaning in her darkened door, she cried to me, hey, why not ask for more? Oh, like a bird on the wire, like a drunk in a midnight choir, I have tried in my way to be free.
Next up is Canadian Jewish musician Josh Dolgan, who performs under the name of So Called. Josh is a pianist, accordionist, journalist, photographer, filmmaker, magician, cartoonist, and puppet maker based in Montreal. He has led masterclasses in music festivals around the world. This evening he'll be closing our show with a special Canada Day set, including, yes, a Leonard Cohen number. But first, here he is discussing his work with the English historian and broadcaster Alan Dean.
Great to meet you, Josh. And I really look forward to hearing a little bit about you and the music that you love and the kind of things that you're working on now. Let's start with your background. Where did you grow up?
It's great to meet you too, Alan. And this is a lovely occasion. I grew up in Ottawa, which is actually the capital of Canada, as you know. Ottawa, Ontario, and right across the border in Quebec, there's a little town called Chelsea, which is really just 20 minutes from downtown, which is unbelievable, to be kind of in the country, in the Gatineau Hills. And that's where I really grew up. And actually, I'm here now, back in my childhood home, where I've been sort of hiding out during this pandemic. But usually I live in Montreal.
Tell me a little bit about that kind of cultural aspects of your growing up in where you're, in Chelsea, in a part, not in the heartland of Jewish urban Canada. What was that like?
Very much not the heartland. In fact, we were the only Jewish family in this little town, aside from the veterinarian, and really, the Jewish life was in the home. So we would celebrate the holidays, and we would, we would drive into the synagogue in Ottawa, which is about a 45-minute drive. And so we did get a sort of Hebrew education. But really in high school, I was the only Jewish kid in high school. But it was never a bad thing. I never felt like racism, actually. It was always kind of this Canadian politeness and curiosity. And because I was the only one, people were like, okay, what does it mean? And so I'd be happy to tell them that I was Jewish, and my mother would come into school and make latkes during Hanukkah, and we were the face of Jews in this little town. And only later, when I moved to the big city of Montreal, did I see, oh wow, it's not so rare to be Jewish. Like, I went to McGill, and there was tons of Jews in the class, and there was still a sense of this old Yiddish world, really, on the streets of Montreal, even in restaurants and just in sort of the culture that I was coming in contact with.
And I'm intrigued, Josh. How did you find your route into Jewish music, the kind of music that you write and perform today?
Well, it's a long story, but the short version is that I loved funk music, African American soul and R&B, but really funk. And then in the 90s, when I was a teenager, and when you're a teenager, music is really important, and really the music that you heard when you were 16 is going to define you. And the music that I heard when I was 16 was Snoop Doggy Dogg. And Snoop Doggy Dogg was sampling funk. The reason I loved Snoop was because I recognized my favorite type of music, which was funk, George Clinton, James Brown. It was in this new music, but it was a new sound. It was the old kind of flow and syncopation and funkiness, but mixed with new technologies and mixed with new poetry that was very current and talking about what was going on in the world today. So that interested me. I mean, I also liked sort of grunge music, which also seemed very current and like for now. I wanted to be a part of now. And so the hip hop was like the funk, but it was like funk for now. And it was this hip hop culture that felt very approachable and felt very sort of like a new way for young people to participate, especially in popular music. It's kind of hard. It's this big economy, it's impenetrable to participate in that kind of music, like to have your voice heard, to make a music that people will listen to, and it's a part of now and part of today. So with hip hop, it felt like you could just do it. It was the tools were sort of at your disposal. You could do it with small little machines, but you could make a big sound, and you could make a music for today. And so I wanted to participate in hip hop. So I started to look for breaks, which is really at the heart of sample-based hip hop production, looking for little sounds in old records. And at first I started with my parents' record collection, my brother's record collections, my own record collection as a kid. And that was, whatever they had. So it was Chilean music, it was Russian music, it was classical and a bit of light sort of jazz, and the Four Freshmen. And then my brothers were listening to heavy metal and AC/DC and Tom Waits and Brazilian music and REM. And I was looking for breaks in that. Like hip hop, people are looking for breaks in their own music. If you look at hip hop, the roots of hip hop, it's from these Jamaican immigrants. They're referencing old Jamaican songs. They're referencing reggae and ska, and they're referencing R&B and disco and funk. And I started with my own record collection mixed with my love of funk and African-American music, trying to make an African-American music, which is hip hop. That's really that's where it comes from.
And that link with Jewish music, and particularly music from a long way back, going back to the source almost of the earliest recorded Jewish music, particularly music that had a swing, that had a sense of authenticity, like what we call klezmer today. The kind of the stuff that really, in a way, had been lost within generations, just disappeared almost. It was a sense of kind of clawing that music back.
Big time. And it happened by accident, really. For me, it happened by accident. And only now have I come to understand a bit more about why, as a young Jewish kid growing up in Canada, how I'd never had access or ever been exposed in any way to Yiddish music. And now I've come to understand, that there's this history of obviously the Holocaust, which killed off the source of the music. And then in the diaspora, with families like mine, with my parents who were born in Canada, of people from Ukraine, Romania, Eastern Europe, the Pale of Settlement, those people assimilated. They wanted to fit in. They wanted to not rock the New World boat. So they stopped speaking Yiddish with their children. My parents didn't speak a word of Yiddish. They stopped doing the dances. They stopped producing the daily newspapers and going to Yiddish theater. And there was a whole huge, vibrant culture of Yiddish music, poetry, song, theater, cinema, even. So I had no access to that as a kid. You looked at my parents' record collection, there was one Jewish record, this guy Theodore Bickel, who managed to sort of break through. He was on a major label and was a folk singer. Great. But Abe Schwartz, Dave Terrace, Abraham, Aaron Lebedeff, Molly Picon, never heard these names that are names that should be known. They're on the same level as Louis Armstrong and Ellington and jazz.
And George, give me a sense of what it was like when you discovered that music. And we're talking about music that was recorded in the 20s and the 30s. Just give me a sense of what because you were looking for this authenticity. Obviously, you were inspired by rap music and the kind of music that was happening, where there was a sense of kind of people were obviously, it was a sense of identity, and it was a sense of kind of a kind of voice, articulating a voice about who you are. So who did you become, in a way, when you heard that music?
Well, with hip hop, what I soon discovered was you have to represent who you are. And you talk about your crew, you talk about your history. And so I felt weird sampling black music, even though I loved it. And really, I was looking for funky little moments in old records that could come from anywhere. At first, I didn't have this sort of mission. But I started to find, when I moved to Montreal, I started to find old Jewish records, cantorial music from the synagogue, Yiddish song in its myriad forms of lullaby and folk song and art song and theater song, and then Hasidic music of these religious, the Hasidim, the guys wearing all black, who sing these wordless nigunim, these incredible songs. So I started to find records of compilations of those. There was funky bits in those. And then klezmer, the Eastern European dance music, basically instrumental wedding music. And I was looking for funky things. And at first it wasn't on purpose, like I said. But when I started to listen to these old records, it was full of funky, beautiful musical moments that at first I could just use in my hip hop, but eventually it turned me on to this whole music, and I wanted to participate. I wanted to sing Yiddish songs. I wanted to play it on an instrument and play in a band and try to make that music live again. So it was a combination of sort of, frankly, an anger at having been deprived of this music, and sort of just looking around at all the great world musics of the world and seeing my own culture missing for some reason. So there was a certain frustration about that, but then that got me to look at new movements of this culture today. There's a revival of the culture, and people are learning the music, and there's festivals around the world, and people are learning the poems and singing the songs again. I didn't know that, and it's a very small niche kind of underground scene.
I know we've got plenty to speak about, and I would love to continue.
Me too. I want to ask you, Alan, about all your projects and stuff.
We'll do that next time. We'll do that next time. So at this moment, I'd love to say thank you. A pleasure. Josh, brilliant.
Happy Canada Day.
Happy Canada Day to you.
Bye.
Award-winning Canadian Jewish playwright Hannah Rittner has written a monologue, especially for this evening. We'd like to thank the Canadian High Commission for their support in the making of this international collaboration. It's called The News and will be performed by British actor Michael Horowitz. First, here's Hannah Rittner.
Hi everyone, happy Canada Day. My name is Hannah Rittner and I am the playwright that is sharing with you the piece The News, which is an exploration of motherhood, Jewish mysticism, and how we come to end relationships and what happens when those relationships end when something new is beginning. I just want to credit the actor Roxy Sternberg, who generously engaged in some really inspiring conversations with me before writing the piece. The conversations we had about our own lives and what inspires and motivates us really informed the piece, and I believe has made it the strong piece that it is. So I want to thank Roxy for that. I also just am so excited for Michael to perform it. And I'm just so grateful to be sharing this piece with you. I really want to thank JW3 for this opportunity, and I hope that wherever you are safe, well, and happy, and enjoying some good weather, hopefully. Thank you so much, and have a great night.
Sorry, this closet was the only place I could find for us to speak without someone harassing me about when tickets for the High Holy Days got on sale, so... I know you've got lots of things to do with the move to LA and all your film equipment and your new girlfriend, Alicia, and your new dreams. And sorry, I didn't mean to sound resentful. That's not how I meant to say it. I mean, it's really great. You know, I believe that, right, Tom? There's this incredible story in the book of Genesis about miracles. Sarah asks God for a child, and after years of waiting, God finally changes his mind and decides they are ready. And so he gives them a son, a beautiful boy named Isaac. The birth of Isaac really is this miracle for them, you know? After all those years of waiting, Sarah and Abraham finally got the one thing they wanted. Anyway, later on, it's no surprise God tests Abraham again by asking him to sacrifice his son so as to prove his devotion somehow. Sarah, of course, hears nothing of this request and only gets to see Abraham after the deed was almost done and after God himself decides that Abraham's sacrifice was too steep and a ram's life would do in lieu of something more catastrophic. I find it incredibly challenging to tell this story to children and mothers, especially, that somehow God expects us to be willing to give it all up. To give up our most precious gifts, the ones that matter most to our hearts. And in exchange for what? I guess a lesson in how quickly things can be taken away, which isn't exactly the most convincing argument on the benefits of this new one God policy that is Judaism, you know? And yet, while this part of the Torah is all those things I mentioned, terrifying, unpredictable, and even merciless, I'm realizing it's also a parable for parenthood and how loss is inextricably bound with the love you have for your child. Of course, one hopes you never have to live to see your child's death, but even if you never have to, there is constant loss and grief in loving and raising one. It's a happy loss, though, you know? We lose the child from an infant to when they take their first steps. We lose them again when they grow from childhood to adolescence. We lose them again when they become a grown-up. Then we lose them to a partner, or eventually we lose them to their own families and careers. And yet this loss, which we experience throughout parenthood, it's a sign. The more we're losing them, the more life they're living. And that, well, isn't that what life's all about? There is such humility and surrender in that kind of a love, you know? Even if it can be painful. And so, in some strange way, I feel God was preparing Abraham and Sarah for that reality of parenthood and its constant relationship with loss by specifically giving Abraham that test that if he could handle the fact that his son, whom he loved so deeply, may have had to die on that mountain for a reason beyond his comprehension, then he could, in fact, handle all those other inevitable losses that would come if Isaac were to live and grow up and walk and become a future leader, lover, or whatever else he was going to become. Your child's life isn't completely up to you. I'm sorry. I've taken advantage of your sympathetic ear. I forgot, maybe, that one of the many reasons why you left me was so you could finally have a break from this. And well, good news. Now you're free to go to LA and live openly as an atheist Jew without any old bullies judging you for missing Shabbat services or... Sorry, I need to collect my thoughts. Despite all my efforts, brevity has never been a strength of mine. Something happened. I missed my period a few months back after our last time together when we signed the papers. I mean, this isn't a big deal for me, as you know, with my one ovary barely trotting along. And after all our failed attempts when we were married, but this time I actually got... I wanted to tell you I'm pregnant and it's yours. I'm sorry it happened for us like this. I really am. And I'm here to tell you, I expect nothing from you. It's just... I'm 39 and it's just not fair. You know, my mother's cancer came back, and before her last chemo session, she kept saying to me, Ava, when did you stop believing you deserved everything. You really do deserve everything, you know? And I couldn't exactly respond, you know, but what I wanted to say was, well, Mum, I don't have everything, but this is something. I'm 4 months pregnant, and I had my first ultrasound last week, and I'm having a girl, and you're going to be a grandmother. Mazel tov. I wanted to tell you first because, you know, so I understand that you're shocked, which I get entirely. I wasn't expecting to share this news scot-free or with any definitive answers, but the way we ended things after we last saw each other, when we, well, and you said what you said about leaving me because I was in some weird way above you, or it just, and this news about Alicia and your new life and finally having a clear path, I didn't want anything to get in the way of that or your happiness. So that's why I waited until now, until I knew for sure that it was going to happen. And so I just wanted to tell you that I forgive you. And I thank you, in a way, for everything. I mean, I couldn't have done this without you, quite literally. There will come a time when she's old enough to ask about you. My naive hope is when she's about to have her bat mitzvah, but judging by how precocious we both were as children, I'd be remiss if I didn't expect her to be otherwise. So when that time comes, if all I can tell her is that her dad is somewhere out there in LA pursuing his dreams and going on wild adventures and may not want to be in touch with us, that's okay. You know? But it doesn't matter. Because she is so loved. And she is so held. And she is so wanted. And that'll be okay. I'll be okay. All right, Tom?
I hope you've already eaten, because if you're the slightest bit peckish, this next segment will definitely have you running to your fridge. It's about JW3's Food Bank program, which is delivered with love, actually.
Hi, I'm Jacob Foreman and I am the Food Bank Coordinator here at JW3. Here today with our partners Feast, we've got a really exciting project called Oi Canada, where we are celebrating the contribution to Canadian life of the Jewish population. We're going to be working with Canadian Jewish chef Gail Simmons, who is preparing for us a really exciting menu that our volunteers cannot wait to start cooking. All the food that we prepare from this kitchen today gets sent out to a variety of people who are in need of a hot meal. So today, about 30 of the meals are going to go to our partners at the Single Homeless Project, who run a hostel for people suffering from homelessness currently, as well as a few assorted other people who are either vulnerable or unable to cook for themselves for some reason or another. This is our first ever international collaboration and we are super excited to get going.
Hi, I'm Gail Simmons from Top Chef, and I'm so excited to create a recipe for you today inspired by the ingredients that JW3 gave me. I'm going to be using tomato puree, eggs, cannellini beans, bell peppers, fresh chilies, herbs, and spices. And this is for my shakshuka-inspired baked eggs with spinach and cannellini beans. It's a recipe I learned to make when I lived in Israel on a kibbutz for a summer, and I'll always think of my Jewish roots when I eat it. It's great for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's hearty and cozy, and I think that it's something you'll really love. Thank you so much to JW3 and Feast for giving me the opportunity to be part of your Oi Canada Day celebrations.
After we've made the food, we're going to take it straight to Emma Freud for a tasting session.
This is the shakshuka. That is so tasty. Mmm. It's delicious. Hang on. Mmm. It would really have helped if I hadn't have taken quite such a large mouthful, but that is perfect. I'm giving this a 9.5, especially those beans. They're lovely. Sorry, I should probably stop now. Oi Canada. This is really good. Gail, you absolutely know what you're doing. I live with a man who thinks he's very amusing, and he's got a joke about Canada. I'll tell you, so actually I'm going to take the phone now.
It's not my joke, it's a joke I read by K.D. Lang. On a blistering hot day with the sun beating down, how do you get 100 incredibly happy Canadians to get out of the pool where they're having the completely best day of their lives?
I don't know, Richard. How do you do that?
You say, okay everyone, out of the pool. There we go, you see, because the Canadians are so nice and kind of obedient and socially responsible.
Yeah, I think everybody understands.
I've always had to explain my jokes, but I can't explain how tasty that food is.
Everything that we do here, from unloading the vans to cooking to delivering, is all done by volunteers, and there's always a space on our rota. Please get in touch with Jacob at jw3.org.uk. I want to say a massive thank you to Gail Simmons for our wonderful recipe and for Emma Freud for helping us out with our food today. Happy Canada Day! Happy Canada Day! Oh, Canada.
Catherine Williams is back with another Leonard Cohen song, joined by a Canadian guest, Samantha Parton of the wonderful Vancouver band, the Be Good Tanyas. If you don't know the Be Good Tanyas, do check them out. Their music is hard to describe, except to say that it's Be Good. Be good, be good. Never mind. This is Catherine Williams and Samantha Parton singing That's No Way to Say Goodbye.
city and in forest they smile like me and you. But let's not talk of love or chains and things we can't untie. Your eyes are soft as sorrow. Hey, that's no way to say goodbye.
Also from the West Coast, our next segment is a Pecha Kucha presentation from Kaylee Spitzer, an Indigenous Jewish Canadian photographer. Kaylee will talk us through her photographs and share her visions of tribes and country.
Hi, my name is Kaylee Spitzer. I'm really happy to be here today. Thank you for having me. I've included an image of me making my first photograph for some comedic relief to start. I'm phoning in from the traditional unceded and occupied territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples. I'm an uninvited guest on this land, and I'm grateful to be living here. This is an image of my traditional territory, the Chinla. On my father's side, I'm Cascadena, originating from Dalu, also known as Lower Post, British Columbia, so-called Canada. On my mother's side, I'm Jewish, originating from Transylvania, Romania. This image is of my late grandmother, Maida. Most of these images are made on 35mm and 120 film. I've spent a lot of time documenting my people, traditional practices, and territory. I feel a big urgency to this work as we are losing our elders at a rapid rate. My father was taken to residential school when he was 5 and ran away successfully when he was 15. So I am part of a generation that has quite a gap in knowledge that I've been relearning as an adult. And I've been very privileged to witness and be welcomed into these spaces to participate and document. These particular images were made as part of a high tanning workshop put on by an organization called Denenau out of the Northwest Territories, where we went to Gwich'in territory and learned from elders, including Alice Vetracqua, imaged here. And we learned how to tan hides the Gwich'in way. And I feel that documenting these processes is really important for a number of reasons, including that I feel it's a way to pass on knowledge even after our elders pass on. So for me, it's also really important for younger generations to be making this work. This is my Auntie Eva and grandmother Maida cutting up some moose meat at a traditional youth camp we held in our territory. Again, this is my late grandmother Maida showing off a moose hide drum that she had made. So a lot of these processes I would have learned to do as a child, but unfortunately that was taken from me. And so I, like I stated before, have been relearning this as an adult and feel very passionately about this work. This is my friend Angela Code dehairing a hide. These next few images are of the hide tanning process. Sometimes I'm not sure how much to say about it because they are culturally sensitive images, and we do live in an age in which social media aids appropriation and, in my opinion, the destruction of land sometimes. So these are really beautiful for me to share with people, and I'm also protective of where they go. This next image that you will see is of my late grandmother Maida doing the final smoke on a hide. And then we're going to get into wet plate collodion process. I make tintypes on aluminum. And these next two images were commissioned by the Bill Reid Gallery in Vancouver, so-called Canada. This is a portrait of my friend Audrey Siegel, who is a Musqueam member. And she does really incredible work for her community and Indigenous people across Canada, so-called Canada. largely to do with missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, queer and trans folk. This portrait was made to honor her sister Audrey, who passed 8 weeks prior to this image being made. And these images also relate to a greater series that I have been working on since 2014, Exploration of Resilience and Resistance, in which I'm imaging my predominantly BIPOC and queer community. These images are about accurate representation. I feel that it is so important to be heard and seen, especially as BIPOC folks. Another thing I feel really passionately about is parenthood and motherhood. So I focused on that within my photography as well. And then going back to the point about being heard and seen, a lot of these images have voice recordings to accompany them and are shown within gallery and institutional contexts in which you're urged to look at the large-scale portraits and really see us and hear our stories. That being said, these images are first and foremost for the people in the images. I feel that photography has long been a violent colonial tool used for the taking. And so a lot of the driving force behind this project is to help create a safe space in which that relationship to photography can be healed. And I view all of these images as a collaboration with the people in the images that I work with, and I'm forever grateful for their generosity with me and therefore with you. I feel like it's a great privilege to witness people, and especially in their vulnerability and strength. This last image that you're going to see is of my mother, Eloise Spitzer, in which she is, This image is a collaborative self-portrait of myself and my friend Bubsy, who's an amazing artist as well. She later went on to paint and draw on these images, which you can see on my website as well. They're a really beautiful collaboration. And now this last image is of my mother, Eloise Spitzer. It's one of the only tintypes I've made within the pandemic. And you can see she's showing off her bilateral mastectomy scars here. This last year and a half has been incredibly challenging for all of us, and I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that and just make a little space to sit with that, because this is a really pivotal moment in time, and I'm really grateful to be here and witness the changes that are happening, and also want to hold space for the grief that's been happening for this year. Thank you so much for having me. Sogasinla.
Next up is another premiere, a collaboration between British Jewish composer Theo Jameson and Canadian Jewish lyricist Akiva Romer Siegel, performed by singer Keith Ramsey. It's a specially commissioned song about the immigrant experience, produced with the support of the Quebec government in London and the Siegel Centre in Montreal. This is Strange Land.
We land on the shore, take one step and one more as reality starts setting in. We've traveled so far, we don't know where we are, with nothing but stories and scars on our skin. Been running as fast as we can from the past and trying to build something new. Both the pride and the pain seem to always remain, but we keep them inside, safely hidden from view. We've wandered so far from our home, but make the most out of this life we never planned. They change our names and change our clothes. We learn the language, but they still don't understand. We're all strangers in a strange land. We keep our heads down as we settle in town, and we take any chances they give. They don't seem to trust as we rise from the dust and move on from memories too hard to relive. We play by their rules in their streets and their schools and learn to do as we're told. We have to be brave as we work and we save, keep trying our best to spin ashes to gold. They treat us like we don't belong, but there are freedoms we deserve and we demand. We're holding hope and holding strong. We try to show them that they cannot understand. Another stranger in a strange land. We try to find each other in the crowd. We realize we may not be alone, and slowly but surely we find our way, making new lives of our own. In the blink of an eye, seems like decades roll by, and we find ourselves looking around, more at home than before, not as scared anymore, with our feet planted firm on the ground. And I'm starting to see strangers newer than me, broken, desperate, and lost. When your world fell apart, you pursued a fresh start. Now you finally arrived at a terrible cause. I know the worry on your face, I felt it once, so let me lend a helping hand. Don't fear this unfamiliar place, I'll stay beside you, cause by now I understand that we're all strangers, that we're all strangers, we're all strangers in a strange land. We're all strangers in a strange land.
We have one more collaboration tonight before Josh Dogan returns with his musical set. It's a chat between two fantastic comedians and friends. One is Canadian stand-up Tony Law, originally from Lacombe, Alberta, but resident in London since the age of 19. Since winning the Glastonbury New Act competition in 1995, Tony has become one of the most recognizable stand-ups on the circuit. Simon Brodkin was born in Camden Town. He trained as a doctor, well, he is Jewish, but became a full-time comedian in 2007. His comedy character, Lee Nelson, has been all over the television, including shows like Live at the Apollo. We put Tony and Simon together in a digital fashion, and this is what happened.
Hi, Tony.
It's me, Tony Law.
It's me, Simon Brodkin. I thought my room was cramped until I saw your. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but it looks like you're inside a pillowcase.
It's a linen cupboard. I've got it all soundproofed, green screen, and I record all my magic for the internet in here.
My first question is that how all Canadians live?
What's that?
My first question is that how all Canadians live?
Yeah, I think if you come, like I'm from Alberta in Canada, way out west where there's lots of space, and so I'm unable to find the space I need in London, so I go small.
I love it.
I find headspace. And so in here, I beam myself out through the internet and I feel like I'm on the prairies again. but without all the rednecks.
Well, I am upstairs in my house in London, and I love this vibe. I think this is about bringing together different cultures, and we have a Canadian speaking to a Jew.
Oi
tiny-
Canada, it's called Oi Canada.
Yeah, is that? Oi, come on in, Canada.
But you know
It's
what?
not-
I had to leave Canada to meet my first Jewish person. I'm still uncomfortable
Okay.
just saying Jew.
Was that on Taskmaster?
So in Alberta, I didn't know anyone who was Jewish. And then when I left to go travel in Europe, the first person I met who was Jewish was a South African. And I became really close to some South African Jews. And then traveling around, I kept hanging out with Israelis. So it sounds...
They get everywhere. The Israelis, there are more out of Israel traveling on their gap year than there are in Israel itself.
Well, all the Aussies and the Kiwis used to group together, and the Canadians I was always hanging out with the Israelis and the South Africans, and we were always hanging out.
Are you now back in Canada? Because obviously, I don't know if, people probably won't be aware, but we have our paths have crossed many times as fellow comedians in the UK.
Well, no, I've lived in the UK, now for 30 years, and I've done all my comedy over here. So I feel probably closer to you than I do to some guy I grew up with. You know what I mean? We have more in common with each other. We're comedians, we're road dogs. All of our references are going to be similar, and I won't be going back. But I love it, eh? If this is going out to Canada, way to go, guys.
Yeah, I mean, of course, you're downstairs in my linen cupboard.
Yeah, that's how close we are.
So that's really interesting that you now feel more part of the UK than you do part of Canada, just because the amount of time spent.
Yeah, and things are starting to blend over the back to online. You do feel closer to everywhere now, don't you? So it's not such a one thing about Canada is I like what one guy used to say, a thing like the Americans are always saying like we're number one, and Canadians are always we're just a number, and I think that makes it healthy. And then
Sorry, Tony, I keep interrupting.
No, not at all. I keep interrupting you. You go ahead.
Well, trying to stay on topic.
Yeah.
With I guess the nationalism that people feel is. I can't empathise with it. That this deep pride in one's own country I can get, but what nationalism seems to do, and where it gets so unhealthy, is you think your country is the best, and therefore other countries and other people are inferior. And you're talking about where you feel at home, Canada or England. I would say that similar-minded people would feel more at home in each other's company, regardless of their passport. And I hang out with someone from England, but with a completely different mindset, and have much less in common with them than had I even met you on day one when you came over from Canada.
Yeah, well, people would always ask me, where do they like you best when you're touring? What they like you best in Scotland or in York? Like, where's your best audiences? And I would say that it's all the nerds and the niceys in every town. So if I'm in Liverpool, it's all the nice people from, nice kind of nerdy, weird people from that area come to the show. And they're quite similar to the ones from Yorkshire. Or you go to Northern Ireland and they're all like, I don't know, I just find these nice groups of people everywhere and they're the same amount of niceness. It's the niceness is what I like. I find all the nice ones.
I think we maybe need to start, and obviously we would be Prime Minister or King of Niceland.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to get people from every country and just come to Iceland.
Yeah.
Obviously the checks are you nice, yes or no?
Yeah.
And then you come. And forget all this nonsense of old school borders.
Yeah. Eventually that'll go.
Yeah, give it a couple of 1,000 years, mate, and they'll be playing this out in Iceland.
Yeah.
So did you have any preconceived ideas about Jews when you first met a Jew, or was it not even in your mindset to think of a Jew?
Only from like no negative, no, just there's these people in America, like you say, who are like Jewish comedians, and I learned a lot about people that way.
Yeah.
And then you end up finding out that most of your favorite comedians happen to be this thing that's Jewish, and it's like it literally.
What is this thing?
And then you get to know people over the years, and you just think, well, we were missing out on the prairie.
Yeah.
Does it inform your comedy, or do you stay away from it, or is it?
Well, the Jewish link to comedy is a fascinating one. It's really hard to say whether there is one. Obviously, it looks like there is, but in a way, then you start becoming a bit stereotypical yourself by going, all Jews are this, even if it's positive. And the woke crew will not like that. It informs my comedy just as being Jewish is part of my life. And so the family have always put, a lot of importance on laughing and laughter. And now coming out of being a character comic, which I always did, Lee Nelson was the one that most people know me for. I absolutely am talking about being Jewish, and it's in my current tour, and what a joy it is as a straight stand-up comedian for the first time, as in non-character, to be able to talk about things that mean something to you and talk about things that are true and real. And it is really cool to be able to express that on stage for the first time in my career, instead of hiding behind something and creating a pretense.
Do you think Lee Nelson was Jewish, the character?
100. No. No, 100%. Yeah, there was not much Jewish about Lee.
Well, what a weird thing this has been.
I know, mate. I know, but what a nice thing it's been. Yeah. And to hear just a little snippet of someone else's point of view is a really cool thing. I think if everyone could start the day with a little cross-cultural platform, I reckon you'd go into the world ever some more, with more empathy. And that's what we could do with. It's been a pleasure talking to you, mate. And I really hope to see you soon at a gig.
You too, man.
And, take care, dude.
Take
All
care.
the love.
All the best, mate. See you soon.
Bye, mate. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Our final performance is also supported by the Quebec government in London. We'd like to thank them and the High Commission of Canada and the Segal Centre in Montreal for helping to put the Oi in Oi Canada. I'm Kerry Shale, originally from Winnipeg, now very much from Islington. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll wrap up the celebration with a big red Canadian bow by bringing back Josh to perform his virtuoso solo set. This is So Called.
Viele Lieder hab ich gekannt und alle haben mich gerissen. Noch ein Lied ist mir verblieben, sie kann ich nicht vergessen. Noch ein Lied ist mir verblieben, sie kann ich nicht vergessen. Oh, mein liebe Bessarabia, Land von Frieden und ein Land von Treue. Bin ich der Mann, sich in deiner Zeiten noch ich wein und ich bedeue. Spielt ein Pastor auf sein Pfeifel. Wenn ich der Mann sich in deiner Lonkes in mein Herz noch sie bänken. Bessarabia. Land von Frieden und ein Land von Treue. Das ist das Lied von den Bessaraber, von den Pastor und Poyer. A song about Bessarabia, the old country, where my ancestors came from the repertoire of the great Arkady Gendler. Now I'd like to sing a song, it being Canada Day, from the repertoire of one of the great Canadian artists of all time, a great poet, a great singer, a great thinker from my town of Montreal. This is Leonard Cohen and Dance Me to the End of Love. Dance me to your beauty with a burning violin. Dance me through the panic till I'm gathered safely in. Lift me like an olive branch and be my homeward dove. Dance me to the end of love. Dance me to the end of love. Oh, let me see your beauty when the witnesses are gone. Let me feel you moving like they did in Babylon. Show me slowly what I only know the limits of, and dance me to the end of love. Dance me to the end of love. Now sing with me. Now and dance me on and on. Dance me very tenderly and dance me very long. We're both of us beneath our love, we're both of us above. Dance me to the end of love. Dance me to the end of love. Dance me to the children who are asking to be born. Dance me through the curtains that our kisses have outworn. Raise a tent of shelter now, though every thread is torn. And dance me to the end of love. Dance me to the end of love. Oh, dance me to your beauty with a burning violin. Dance me through the panic, though I'm gathered safely in. Touch me with your naked hand, or touch me with your glove, and dance me to the end of love. Dance me to the end of love. Ba-bum. Thank you so much for having me. It was a great honor to be a part of this Canada Day celebration. Direct to you live from Canada.
Okay. And frankly, there's nothing so unusual about being a Jewish cowboy.
On the trail to nowhere, all I have is a horse, and even he would leave if he broke free of this curse. All I've got is memories, and they aren't even mine, and the dry wind wails as my song is blown away. At night I look to the stars. Never alone. At night I look to the stars. You are never alone. As I ride on this road, on a journey of my life, and I come to a place and I stop and wonder why. But when I come to a town and I lay my saddle down, then I search for some peace, but it's nowhere to be found. I ride like a tumbleweed rolling free. At night I look to the stars. That's when I heard a voice speak to me. Never alone. You are never alone. Yo, this is straight from the horse's mouth. We are buried treasure. Battle on strong forever, ever, ever, ever. Yo, this is straight from the horse's mouth. We are buried treasure, treasure, treasure. Vagabond traveled on, gravel palm, battle on, strong forever. Jo, ich bin schon wieder Single, Punkt also wie ein Jingle. Mit meinem Weiber hab ich sich gegeben. Gedenkt hab ich zu muffen, herumgesucht zu schluffen, hab mein Weiber mehrere Berge gerät. Jo, was das so in Glicken, in Fremde sich stecken, in Seilleiden retten zu die Wand. Nur zeigt die Bitten, wo bei ihr ist mir gekochen, ein Schere Rest und trinkt noch in der brenne Welt. Brenne Welt. Now there's no tomorrow, only yesterday. But to live in the past is to ride your life away. I just know in my bones that I will die all alone, tied down to the ground like a sagebrush before me. At night I look to the stars. You are never alone. At night I look to the stars. You are never alone. You are never alone.
I remember you well in the Chelsea hotel. You were talking so brave and so sweet, giving me head on an unmade bed while a limousine waits in the street. Those were the reasons. That was New York. We were running for the money and the flesh, and that was called love for the workers in song. Probably still is for those of them left. But then you got away, didn't you, babe? just turned your back on the crowd. You got away, I've never once heard you say, I need you, I don't need you, I need you, I don't need you, and all of that driving around. I remember you well in the Chelsea Hotel. You were famous, your heart was a legend. You told me again you preferred handsome men, but for me you would make an exception. And then clenching your fists for the ones like us who are oppressed by the figures of beauty. You fixed yourself, you said, well, never mind, we are ugly, but we have the music. But then you got away, didn't you, babe? You just turned your back on the crowd. You got away, I never once heard you say, I need you, I don't need you, I need you, I don't need you, and all of that driving around. I don't mean to suggest that I loved you the best. I can't keep track of each fallen robin. I remember you well in the Chelsea Hotel. That's all